And I'm going to talk about one of my very favorite charities. I support a lot, but the St. Louis Park Foundation has been important to me for a lot of years. When I joined the club in 2008, we were just, oh, let's go back. I joined the club in 1983. And at that time, our foundation was a pass-through foundation, which meant that the money was contributed, let's say this year. It went into CDs basically for 3 years. And then we spent the remainder, which would have been the earnings plus the principal, and we start over. So that meant we were always within 3 years of having no money at all. In 2008, the recession hit. And very quickly, volunteerism in organizations like Rotary just dropped off. And I could see the end of the world coming very quickly in terms of our foundation. So I approached the board and we discussed, and the board decided to set up a permanent fund. And that is different from the pass-through, which still happens. We still do the every 3-year thing. But this is money that we collected that will never, the principal will never be spent. Only the earnings will be spent. It was sort of pushed when Bob Marshall died and left us $60,000. And it got batted around for a while as to what we were going to do with that. And then the board finally decided that the permanent fund would be the best way to do that. We rewrote the bylaws of the foundation and the spending policy. And then Bruce Hasselbring and I worked together on raising money. And Bruce saw this as an excellent tool to help Herm put his estate in order. So Herm gave us over $100,000 of stock that had a very low cost basis. And that was the first major gift to the foundation. I threw in $50,000 and Harley put in $25,000. The $60,000 that Marshall had left went in there also, and that was the sort of the seed money for it. And then we started giving out the earnings. Later editions were I put in 125 a year ago to establish a scholarship at St. Louis Park High School for our students of color that were not necessarily the brightest and the best, but had great potential. There's a committee at the high school that determines that, and the president of our foundation works with them. So Mark and that committee will be giving the first scholarship next spring. Normally, that wouldn't happen because it would have to wait for 3 years. According to the bylaws, the principal has to mature for 3 years before you can give any earnings. So I've decided that I will give the scholarship for the first 2 years because 1 year of maturity has already happened. And so next spring, we'll give the first $5,000 scholarship to a student at St. Louis Park High School, and that will be renewable for another 3 years. So it'll be a total of $20,000 some student can get to go to any accredited secondary school of their choice. Also, about the same time, I raised $50,000 from various places, including the Skold family, our Rotary Club, and friends for a memorial scholarship for Ken Skold. Will be much the same as mine. It'll be $2,500 a year, renewable for 3 more years. A couple of years before that, several years before that, Barb Warrion, our longtime secretary, passed away. And so we raised $10,000 to increase our college possible scholarships for $1,000. And so the $10,000 made it possible to raise one to $15,000. And that's now a permanent scholarship that goes to someone at St. Louis Park High School, $1,500 a year. We have done a lot of projects before we got to the permanent one. And the big ones that we did, of course, were the showmobile. For those of you who weren't around, it was Jim Brimmeyer headed up the purchase of a showmobile, which is like a large, about a 50-foot long mobile home, where one side tips down and becomes a platform, and it has St. Louis Park Rotary on it, and it can be towed anywhere in the city to have any kind of a social events. And that was an $86,000 investment that we made. At that time, the club had over 100 members, so we could take on these large projects. At 86,000 was over 3 years. And so the city chipped in to help us with the debt, and then we repaid the city. Children First was one of the other big projects that came before the permanent foundation. And that happened when Carl Holmstrom, the superintendent of the St. Louis Park High School, gave a very impassioned presentation to the club about what's happening to our students, our children in the community. What are we going to do? And that afternoon, Gil Braun and Wayne Packard went to Carl's office, and each presented him with a $5,000 check and said, okay, Carl, you talked about it. Here's the money. What are you going to do about it? And out of that came the beginning of Children First. And I think you all know what happened thereafter. A lot more money has gone into that. And it's been really a pretty good program, because it's not only been St. Louis Park, but it's gone international with Rotary. Some of the other things that we did in the early days, we provided a family room at Methodist Hospital when there was no place for the family to wait while people were in surgery. We started the Carol Hurd Park, which is now Northfield Park, just off Cedar Lake Road. But that was a Rotary project. We planted trees around St. Louis Park. Some of them are 50 years old now and 70 feet tall, and some of them are no longer around. We started something, the Celebration of Peace at the Rec Center, which we put in $40,000. The STEP has been a long-term kind of project for the St. Louis Park Rotary Club, and I think one we can be very, very proud of. Arnie Bloomquist, our longtime member, was on the board of STEP, and should the club ever have thought of forgetting about STEP, Arnie made sure that it was not forgotten, and the money was there. Bill Briggs, one of our former members, when he passed away, left a small endowment, and so we went to STEP and said, what do you need? And they said, we need a room as a clothes closet. And so Bill Briggs endowment paid for the clothes closet. The other thing that our Rotary Club has done over the years is had a very, very strong relationship with the high school. Whatever they have needed, we have been willing to help as best we could. And we can be very proud of what's happened there. The superintendent of schools has been on a member of our club over the years, some more active than others, but they've always been supportive of the club. John Billman was a recent contributor when he passed to the club, and the board worked with his daughter to decide what should be done with the money that he left. And that became the seed money for our Keys operation, and Jim's been very involved with that. Some other projects that have happened in the past that are very important. Mark Sethi was a member of ours, and he brought a doctor from Zambia one day as a speaker. And the doctor was trying to raise, I believe it was around $20,000 for an imaging machine that they needed at the hospital in Zambia because they had no way of doing imaging. And he was looking for us to kick in $3,000. When the presentation was over, Mark Sethi got up and said, I think we should just do the whole thing. And so St. Louis Park Rotary Club purchased that imaging machine for the hospital in Zambia, and I think it's still working today. The other big things we did, we had a member by the name of Bill, NSP engineer, I forget his last name. what was his name?
Laidlaw.
Bill Laidlaw. He and a group decided that they were going to go to Guatemala and help a hospital there that didn't have consistent running water. There was a spring up on the hill and the hospital was down in the valley, but they didn't have a good connection. So they went there and they laid the pipe to bring the water down, but in the process, Bill discovered that they didn't have a functioning electrical system. So he got the equipment from NSP and other places, and he went back, and Paul Hovde went with him at that time to update the electrical system so the hospital had a reliable source of electricity and water. That's sort of the highlights of some of the things we've done. And one of the important things that were, or let's put it this way, if you looked on your poinsettia folder, you can see some of the important things that we're doing now. And it's easy to talk about money and what we give away, but I want to try and help and connect us to people, because this is about people. Rotarians are about helping people. And one of the things that we're doing now that is so people oriented is the Can Do Canine project. And I have in my hand here a couple of notes written by inmates from the correctional facility in Stanley, Wisconsin. And when the virus hit, all of the dogs were withdrawn from the correctional institutions simply because we didn't know how this virus spread. And we got some letters back from inmates, and I'm going to read a couple of excerpts for you. And this inmate writes, I enjoyed the break, but I would much rather have them here. To wake up early morning to a puppy has changed my sentence, but more importantly, it has changed my life. These dogs have been truly it's hard to read, have been truly life-changing to me. They have helped give me hope, confidence, and inspiration. They helped me also to really realize that I enjoy teaching and helping others. And then another short piece from another letter, if I can get this unfolded here. He says, I talk to my dog, I read to him and other things because he is my dog, my son. I thought I was teaching him things, but turns out he was teaching me patience, responsibility, compassion, forgiveness, and important love. Like the handout says, I want to be the person my dog thinks I am. I'll read that last sentence again. I want to be the person my dog thinks I am. Now, this is from an inmate in a state prison. We get 2 bangs for every buck we give to Can Do Canines. We help the prisoner, and then we help the recipient of the dog. And I hope you can be as proud of what we're doing and as what you're giving as I am.